So my guest today is a man that's got a voice of a god, Mr. Tony Hadley. Hello.
I've had legend, a god, the voice of the gods. Well, thank you very much for that, Lewis. Cheers.
I wanted to actually start from the beginning for you, really, which is one where your love of music actually come from. And did you always know that you were going to be a singer growing up?
Well, I mean, I loved music anyway. I went to a very church school. My school in Islington was Clerkenwell Parochial. So it was very, like, we had nuns there and stuff like that. It was very high church. And so the choir was a big part of it. And then when I went to Dame Alice Owen's, again, there was a choir there as well. And we sang at the Guildhall in London, and I was picked for the special choir. And so I enjoyed singing. I remember doing Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat and loved singing that. It was fantastic. So there was a love of singing, but initially my first career choice was a surgeon. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Completely different.
Yeah, no, I'm still fascinated by, like I can watch open heart surgery and aortic valve replacements and things like that, and it doesn't sort of bother me, and I find it really fascinating. So, but that was my first choice. But then I sort of realised that when it came to maths, we're doing homeschooling, and I'm like, how do you do the maths? It's like, geography, history, science, everything else is fine. But the maths that's the one that got me. So consequently, chemistry, physics. So that was it. So I decided to, I discovered music properly.
And going back, obviously, Spandau Ballet, one of the biggest bands, successful bands in the 80s,
Yeah.
And it has continued. So how did you actually get the part? Did you have to audition? Did you set up the band? How did Spandau actually, come about?
Well, what I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing a little thing every week where I say, this is the first song I ever sung in public. This is the second song. So the first song was Lady Madonna at Pontin's Holiday Camp. Forgot the words halfway through. The first time, and it's on YouTube, I think, and the first time I ever won a talent competition in a weekend away from my mum and dad and everyone and the family, I did Young Girl by Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. So this week, I'm going to do the song that I auditioned. Well, not auditioned. It was a weird one, really, because I've always been a frustrated drummer, and the guys were rehearsing with different people and stuff. We had different bass players. Martin wasn't even at the school, and then Steve Norman said to me, he said, "Hey, mate," he said, "we're looking for a singer." And I went, voila. And he said, "What, you?" I said, yeah, mate. And I sang something. He said, "Wow, come down tomorrow and let's have a sing song." And I must admit, I was watching them down in the music room thinking, wow, mate, they really need a proper singer, And the first song I ever did was, "Whoa, Carol, don't let us steal your heart away." The old Chuck Berry song. You're far too young to remember that. Big hit for the Stones in America and stuff. So that was the first song that we ever did, because before we ever got to Spandau, we were like every other band doing R&B covers. Then we were a bit punk, and then eventually, after two bass players later, Martin joined us. So that's essentially how we got together. We were at school anyway, so.
And the band just became, like I said earlier, one of the most successful bands of the 80s. You had the style, you had the voice. And I could easily say, I was actually talking to Carol Decker last week, and we were saying that the 80s seems to be it, like the 90s and the noughties. There's some songs people like, but the 80s just changed the face of music. The festivals, the reunion festivals that you have now, it became so legendary. So why do you think that the 80s was such a special time for music?
Well, it's not always been looked upon as fondly as we think of it now. There have been moments in musical history when people have looked back at the 80s, as they did with the 70s as well. For instance, who a few years ago would have said, "Wow, I love ABBA. ABBA's my favourite band." You go, really? And the same was true of the 80s as well. I think there was an element of that, and an element of naffness. There was some of the music was pretty, well, not the best in the world, put it that way. But I think what identified, it was an interesting decade, because not only you had the kind of the fashion side of things, and the music was very different, very synth orientated. We were entering into new technology. you had Live Aid, Band Aid, Mandela, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War. So it was a very an economic change for this country from the late 70s into the 80s. So it was a really interesting decade. And I think as time goes on with every decade, people go back and they go, actually, it was pretty good. They weren't a bad band, that band. He was all right, that singer. And so people look back at it very fondly. And I suppose of a certain generation that they go, you know, the kids are growing up, they've got their bottle of Prosecco, they're on a lawn and they're rocking. So, but what's interesting, a lot of younger kids come into the festivals now because of things like Spotify and stuff like that. And they can just instantly check out, you know, Spandau, Duran, Culture Club, George Michael, whatever. And then really getting into the music as well. So I'm not complaining.
Well, I can't tell you how many times that I've been on a night out with some friends and I've done karaoke, and I genuinely, in my head at that time, think I'm Tony Hadley and I'm belting out Gold or True, and then you watch a video the next day and realise how terrible I actually am.
Yeah, well, singing's a really passionate thing. I mean, it's an emotional thing, and I'm quite a big singer, so there's a lot of, you know, I'm not like a la 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 la. I'm not one of those kind of singers. It's more, and I suppose for that reason I got noticed very early on, because I was really into the Sinatras, the Tony Bennett's, the Mario Lanzas, trained with an opera singer as well. So there's I wouldn't say opera, that's not the right word, but there's an element of, I suppose, theatre and drama in the way I sing. So just, I suppose, wasn't intentional, but it got me noticed, you know.
And with obviously your UK #1 single, obviously back then it was very different, because these days you've got your streaming services, but back then you actually had to physically go out and buy the record. So it was kind of a lot more, it was tougher to actually get to #1. So can you remember the feeling that you had as a band when you found out, look, you're #1, because it just went crazy for you?
Well, it did, but more so than that, the first time you ever have a single release, because all you want as a band is you want to sign a record deal. And that first piece of vinyl that you get when the first song was To Cut a Long Story Short was just like, wow. And then it went #5, top 5. But then when True went to #1, then you really feel you'd kind of made it. And I think eventually my dad realised that I had a proper job.
It was the right choice.
Well, he was a lovely, bless him. He'd been gone a long time now, but he was a lovely man. And he, like, I suppose most parents, you know, well, son, like, you know, if it all goes wrong, you've got to have a second career in your belt. And I never did. It was always going to be singing and music. But no, they were, you know, really proud of my parents. But it was amazing feeling when it went to #1. And it was #1 in 21 countries around the world, and #4 in America for 4 weeks. Wow. So all of a sudden, the whole world had kind of opened up, and it was like, hey. And then you were flying in private jets. Quite nice, actually.
Obviously, you mentioned there, like, the private jets and everything, but there must have been times where it was really difficult and physically strenuous on you, because I imagine the touring, the amount of press interest you were receiving, the television appearances, were there times where you thought, I just need a break?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was the first one in the band to be married, so I had young children very, very early on. I mean, my oldest son is, wow, Tom's 36 now, you know, so I've got 36, 34, 20, how old is Mackie's? 20, 29, and then I've got 13 and 8, so I've got a whole second time around. And so I was the first one to sort of have that kind of family life. And, it, you know, when you're on tour, and when you do get a hit, you know, the record company know you have to work hard, and you're slapping it around the world. You know, you're doing 2-month tours, 3-month tours. The longest that I didn't see my family for was about 3.5 months once. But then I've always maintained, you know, it's a crazy lifestyle. There's a few pressures, but, you know, when you compare it to military people or what are working in Afghanistan or wherever they have to go, I mean, that's a tough life. Our life is pretty cushy, to be honest. It's the only job I know where they offer you a glass of wine.
You know, going back to say times on Top of the Pops,
Yeah.
did you sing? Was it live singing, or because you always hear people
No,
that you had to lip sync?
it was all mime. It was all
Wow.
because because the organisation, to the amount of time it would have taken to have mic'd up every drum kit, every band. I mean, they would have 6 or 7 bands. I mean, they do it with Jules Holland now, and I wish they'd done it with Top of the Pops. But it was all essentially, no, it was all, everyone was miming, and appalling miming, terrible miming. So I would sing live. I would actually physically sing, and I would practice and practice to make it look as though
Yeah.
I was singing live. But I mean, I was actually physically singing. It just, there was no, the mic was off.
And when the band actually split originally and you went solo, what was that like for
Yeah.
you? Because you were used to having your bandmates with you, and then going out there in that kind of the big world by yourself, was it a daunting time for you?
Terrifying, to be honest. When you've been in a band, I suppose, like Spandau, it's like, you know, most of us were at school together. And all of a sudden, you're like, and I never envisaged that the band would sort of split, and I never did it. It wasn't me, by the way. And yeah, so it was a bit of a weird one, to be honest. It was totally weird. But you know, I'm solo and embarked on a solo career. Made a lot of mistakes. I don't regret anything, because I don't think you should have regrets in life, but I certainly made some mistakes. I remember making my first solo album, and halfway through, because I was going through this really weird period where I was thinking of moving to Los Angeles, and I'm a bit of a rocker as well. I like a lot of West Coast kind of rock stuff, you know, REO Speedforeigner kind of thing. And I remember halfway through the album thinking, I'm not sure this is the right album I should be making, because, you know, I was really sort of going for that kind of LA rock album, but it's some good stuff on it, and you know, it wasn't the big hit album that I hoped for, but there you go, that's life.
And with the band, I mean, that I remember from things that I've read, it caused shockwaves because you guys were just riding so high in the charts for many years. So you just said then it wasn't your decision. Were you upset that the band had split? Were you kind of like, you know, we've got loads of time left, to, you know, together to do this?
Well, to be honest, I think it wasn't fun anymore. And music's got to be fun. If you're not having fun on stage, then in a lot of ways, I think the audience feels that, they sense that. And the last tour was painful. The last album to make, I literally would walk in some days and I'd sort of break into a sweat, and I'd walk out again and go to the pub. I mean, seriously, I don't know, I just like, oh, yeah, it was, and you kind of realize that, you know, maybe we should have a break. Excuse me. And a break wasn't a bad idea, but I didn't realize it was going to be a 20-year break. That's life, you know. It's yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, the big shock for me and a lot of people was, you just said obviously a 20-year break, but when you actually did come back together for the reunion, because I know over the years there were some disputes within the band, and it was heavily featured in the press with issues with royalties. So what was right about the reunion at the time? Because it must have been a little tense.
Tense, that's a word, yeah. It was, for me, it was 6 months of deliberation. Can I do this? I mean, it was a tough decision, but I suppose I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad that I made the decision, because I mean, I was the sort of final person to agree to kind of get back together again, and John Keeble, the drummer, was very instrumental in that, actually. But you know, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it took a weight off of you, because there was a lot of anger, a lot of pain in between. And you know, the stupid thing is just music. It's just pop music. It's not that difficult. It's not like, you know, just discovering sort of aliens in space. It's just a bloody pop group. So but it was difficult, but we did it, and it was okay. And then we had a break. And then we came back with the documentary Soul Boys of the Western World, and a 1.5-year tour, which actually was I think a lot easier than the first tour, although there was some ups and downs. It's never easy. I mean, I think the thing to remember is that, you know, when you break up in a band for that amount of time, and when there is a lot of anger amongst you, even if you put it to one side, it's never going to be the same. You know, your wife runs off with the best mate and you get back together with your wife again. It's never going to quite be the same. Yeah. But anyway, it kind of works, and then the wheels all came off again. So there you go.
Well, again, obviously, the second time you got back together, the second time felt really big. You were on loads of TV shows. The music was going really well. So why did the second time? Why did it finish? Was it your decision?
Well, no, it wasn't. Everyone says there's a lot of fans out there that think it was my decision. Things happened after we. My whole thing about Spandau was that, you know, we got together, we had a break for a few years, we get back together again. It makes it special. We go off and do our own things. I think the guys thought that this was going to roll on, which I thought was a terrible idea, because I had an album to finish, Talking to the Moon, it's actually done really well. I'm sort of very pleased with it, proud of it. But, you know, and I was very honest with the guys that I had to have that. And then I embarked on a US tour, and then seriously all the wheels come off. I've never said why, and they know why as well. I mean, there's been a lot of kind of pretense as to, oh, you know, we don't know why. They do know why. And I said recently that my replacement, Ross William Wilde, was treated quite appallingly, I think. And I think there were a lot of fans that initially blamed me for the breakup of the band, and then realised, hold it a minute, if they're treating him like this, then how did they treat you? Yeah. So there you go. So, but I think it's sad, but, you know, sometimes good things come to an end, and that's the end of that. And I'm working on new material now, hopefully releasing a single within the next month or so, big summer single. And then waiting for this to all end so we can get back to normal.
Go back out and do the shows. I mean,
shows open again, yeah.
I love how humble and just a nice guy you are. I don't want to go too much into it, but one thing I've always found surprising was when I read about, you know, the original dispute, is you're the voice of Spandau Ballet. You're the person, when someone says Spandau Ballet, you think of. So the fact that you weren't getting a fair share of the royalties for the songs that you are the key in surprised me, and it just seemed, I just assumed in a band it would be equal between all of you. That surprised me.
All I'm going to say on that is the bands that basically split everything equally, your U2s, your Coldplay, stuff like that, they're the bands that survive. Yeah. And unfortunately, it was a very unfortunate dispute. And I don't regret bringing the action, and I would do the same thing again, even though I lost. And it was tricky. I mean, people were nearly losing their houses and stuff like that. So it was a pretty angst kind of time for families and stuff. But you know, it's life. You have to do what you believe in. And I've always, my heart's always very firmly on my sleeve. I'm very honest about things. You know, I'll talk about politics, religion, whatever. You know, I mean, the only thing that I haven't spoken about, and I don't know if I ever will, was with the specific reason as to why I quit the band. And it was a very, actually quitting a band like Spandau Ballet, even after everything that's gone on before, you can imagine it was a pretty big thing that happened. So, and it was going to affect me, my family, and my career, certainly for the future. So, so it was time to sayonara, as they say in Japan.
Can you ever see, in the future, as it stands now, could you ever see a potential reunion? Or do you think, I've drawn a line under that? We've had a couple of comebacks, it's been fun, but I'm here for myself and my solo projects.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've parked the car and I've moved on. I've parked the Mini and I'm going ahead in it. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about the new material that we're doing, for instance. You know, I mean, and the thing that I think the fans that see us, you know, I have a great set of musicians around me. You know, we're all good friends. A lot of us have got young kids, and we're just great pals, and we have good fun. I mean, we genuinely have a good laugh, and we do a Zoom every week, every couple of weeks with, hello. How the kids? How are you getting on with the wife? All right, you know. And all sort of saying, can't wait to get back to normal, you know. but no, they're a great set of guys and stuff. So I'm firmly looking at the future. I mean, I'm not a nostalgic person. I mean, people talk to me about, they go, "Oh, the '80s are the best," and everything. I said, "Well, hold it. Check out some of the stuff that's
Yeah.
going on." I mean, you know, my radio show the other day, we'll play the Weather Girls, then we'll play 21 Pilots. You know,
Yeah.
so, and I like sort of playing new stuff, and we feature new bands and new artists and stuff. And I think that's really important. There's some good music out there. So don't discount what's happening now. Love the '80s, but love what's happening now. There's some good bands, and it's tough for young bands and young artists. Really is.
I was going to say, a lot of times when you see a singer who's had, say, success in the '70s or the '80s, and they've released new music, sometimes it can be a little underwhelming. But I've got to say, your last album, people like yourself, Rick Astley, you've come back and it's incredible. And the thing is, it's modern, it's different, it's not what you would expect, and that's what I loved about your last album. It just felt very personal to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, it took a long time. I mean, I wrote so many songs, discarded it, mixed it, remixed it, and I just wanted to get it right, I suppose. But the new album that we're working on at the moment, I mean, I reckon we got 5 out-of-the-box singles on that one. I mean, you know, wow. I'm sticking my neck out now, aren't I? I really am. And everyone's going to go, shoot you down, Hadley. But no, it's sounding really, really good. Again, I mean, it's always good to embrace new technology, new stuff. Don't sit on your laurels. And we got some cracking songs in there. We've got a couple of great songs that are written with the band as well, which we've got to finish. We can't go into the studio until this is done. But you know, at the end of the day, listen, we're all doing okay, and you know, it's the people out there that really find it hard, the people on the front line and stuff. And I always include everybody in this because, I mean, for instance, homeschooling at the moment. Hard. Kids are, Dad, what do you want? Can I have a snack? Can I have lunch? Can I have this? It's kind of quite mad. But so I take my hat to obviously all the health people out there and stuff. I've got friends of mine who are on the front line, but also, you know, people at the supermarkets, your postman, your delivery people, they'll do the distance thing, and you know, hi there, how you doing? And the teachers, and you know, there's a lot of people out there trying to keep us in a relatively normal lifestyle, you know, and they're doing a good job. But so we'll see what happens, you know, and please God, this ends fairly soon.
And then you can get back to the new album, because honestly, I genuinely mean it. Because we had the album last year. When I listened to it, it was so nice to hear it, because it was modern, it was different, and like it's good that you've said to the fans that were, you know, love the '80s, but genuinely I can say, listen to the album, because it's not what people will expect. It's got a modern, and the voice is as powerful as ever as well, which is what's great.
Well, Touchwood is still working and stuff, and no, I'm just excited. I mean, I get excited about music, and I mean, it's, you know, do you make any money from albums these days? No, you know, it's all on Spotify and stuff like that. Yeah. But I mean, I think what I might do on this next album, when we finally finished it, is I think I'm just going to do a vinyl special edition, and then it will go on the streaming devices and stuff like that. My management probably tell me otherwise, but you know, I mean, because the vinyl we sold out, pretty loads of vinyl, just thousands of vinyl. It just went in a nanosecond, you know. But you know, but Spotify's here to stay. The streaming thing's here to stay. We have to embrace it, and it's a new form of technology. And yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, I use it all the time, I have to say.
Oh, very quickly, I just wanted to bring up your appearance in, of course, a couple of years ago of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. What made you say yes to the show?
Yeah.
What made you actually say yes this time? Because I guess you've been asked quite a lot over the years. So what felt right about that time to actually go on the show?
Well, it was that I'd done the Spandau Ballet second reunion tour, 1.5 years on the road. And it's kind of, you know, and I had to finish the new album, and, you know, and I felt, look, you know, let's have a bit of time off from Spandau, go off and do our things, and then hopefully get back together again. Anyway, that didn't happen. But so my decision was based on the fact that, you know, Spandau is such a brand, it's such a, you know, iconic brand kind of thing. I needed people to go, oh, Tone's back on his own again. And what better show to really do it than every night at, what is it, 8 o'clock at night, all the kids watch it, all the family. Oh, that's the bloke who sings True and Gold, you know. So around the campfire, you know, goody, whatever. So that's the reason I did it. They'd asked me before, and I did deliberate. Do I want to do a reality show? But actually, it was flipping brilliant. It was so much fun. And the funny thing is, everyone goes, "Oh, I'm missing my family and everything." You're in the jungle. It's great in the jungle. It's like no phones, no emails, no one to drive you mad, apart from a certain lady, but that's another story. But, you know, you're sitting there, you're chilling, you're looking for birds in the trees and stuff, and listening to it. It's beautiful, really beautiful. And the thing is, as I said to everyone, don't worry about your family. They're in the Versace having a bottle of Vino Bianco. So, you know what I mean? So don't worry about them. They're fine, you know. And the kids, and when I came out, the kids loved it, and it was yeah. And then Hugh Grant was at the hotel as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, his agent is a friend of mine, and all of a sudden I heard this. Hey, Tom. Actually, I can't do this straight. Hey, mate, think True's a great song, mate. Love True. I said, well, you're not so bad yourself, Hugh. How are you? All right. And then, we had a little chat, and of course, then all of a sudden, everyone who was in the jungle said, "You know Hugh Grant, Hugh Jackman?" I said, "Yes." Not Hugh Grant, Hugh Jackman. Sorry, I'm going bonkers mad. And yeah, Hugh Jackman was really lovely, really nice chap, really good lad.
When you said Hugh Grant,
did you say Hugh Grant?
Yeah, when you started doing the Australian accent, I kind of thought.
I've never met Hugh Grant. My wife always tells me, just engage that before you engage that. It was Hugh Jackman. Sorry, I've never met Hugh Grant. I'm sure he's a nice chap, but it was Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman was a thoroughly nice chap. And yes, that was good.
I've got to say, you know, for me to get the opportunity to speak to you about your career and for you to be so open and honest, and like I said, you're such a humble and a nice guy. So I'm so grateful that you've given me the opportunity to speak to you today.
Let me be honest with you. It's a job. It's a great job. But it is an amazing job, and I love it. I love being on stage. I love singing and recording everything. But it is a job. I'm just lucky enough to have a lovely job. You know, but it doesn't make me any different from anybody else. Everybody, as far as I'm concerned, everybody's equal from wherever you come from in life, and that's the way I've always been.
Tony, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I'm really looking forward to
it together in the end.
And I love the Hugh Grant Australian accent.
I don't know, my brain was gone. I get brain fade every now and again.
Well,
but listen, thanks very much, mate. Anyway,
thank you, and keep safe.
Yeah, take care. See you, mate. All right. Good night.